Engaging the musical intelligence, rethinking school curriculum. If music is one of the oldest and most universal forms of human expression, then why is musical intelligence still treated as optional or extracurricular, rather than essential to learning? Students with strong musical intelligence are not just talented performers. They are deeply attuned to patterns, rhythm, tone, and the emotional language of sound. They perceive the world through vibration, harmony, and resonance, and often understand ideas, moods, and meaning through musical form before they do through text or numbers. So why do we still confine music to a side activity when it could be a powerful gateway to deeper understanding, expression, and connection across the curriculum? What happens when these learners are invited to explore subjects through melody, tempo, or mood? A student who might tune out during a traditional lecture could become fully engaged when asked to review a musical composition, identify tonal shifts that convey emotion, or compose their own rhythmic interpretation of a poem or historical event. What if, instead of isolating music to one class per week, we allowed students to analyze math through rhythm, express science through soundscapes, or write stories that could be set to music? Wouldn't that validate their natural way of learning and ignite a deeper emotional connection to content? These students flourish when asked to perform a musical piece, sing a song, or even coach a peer on playing an instrument, not just because of their skill, but because they understand the language of feeling that music brings into a learning space. Imagine a classroom where students were asked to create theme music for characters in a novel, design a sound environment for a museum exhibit, or select appropriate music for a public event or digital experience. Wouldn't that show them how music shapes ambience, behavior, and even memory, far beyond the concert stage? Musical learners also have a deep sensitivity to the relationship between sound and emotion. They can recognize how a minor chord shifts a mood, how rhythm affects energy and attention, and how melody can communicate what words cannot. If education is meant to teach students how to communicate, empathize, and connect, then why not fully embrace music as a tool for emotional intelligence and cultural understanding? What if we used music to process social issues, convey historical moments, or even explore philosophical questions through feeling rather than theory? If we continue to treat musical intelligence as a bonus rather than a valid and powerful form of learning, then we are not only failing to support musically gifted students, we are missing the opportunity to make education more emotional, expressive, and human. So the real question is, are we creating learning environments where music can be used to feel, think, and communicate, or are we still isolating it to performance and entertainment alone? Because when students are encouraged to learn through sound, rhythm, and emotional resonance, they don't just memorize. They feel, remember, and connect in a way that lasts far beyond the classroom. Musical intelligence is often misunderstood as simply the ability to play an instrument or sing in tune, but it runs far deeper than performance. It is the ability to recognize patterns in sound, to interpret emotion through rhythm and melody, and to use auditory perception as a tool for understanding the world. Yet traditional education often sidelines musical intelligence as a special subject, rather than seeing it as a core, vibrant way of learning. If musical thinkers experience reality through rhythm, tone, and sound, shouldn't we be designing classrooms where learning resonates, not just intellectually, but musically? Imagine a classroom where students aren't just solving problems or memorizing dates, but setting historical events to music, composing songs that explain scientific processes, or using rhythm to grasp mathematical concepts. Musical learners could create soundscapes to express emotions in literature, write jingles for advertising campaigns in business classes, or analyze the mood shifts in famous political speeches by studying the cadence and tone. Wouldn't this create deeper, more memorable learning, especially for students whose primary mode of understanding is auditory and rhythmic? When musical intelligence is embraced, students don't just engage differently, they think differently. They begin to notice emotional subtleties, interpret social cues more finely, and translate feeling into expression with fluidity and grace. They understand how sound affects mood, memory, and energy, giving them tools not just for artistic creation, but for effective communication and emotional leadership. Over time, this nurtures adults who are not just more creative, but more attuned to the emotional currents that move groups, teams, and societies. Long-term, developing musical intelligence produces individuals who are not just artists, but innovators. These are the people who become audio engineers, therapists using sound for healing, marketing strategists who understand the emotional resonance of branding, architects who design spaces with sound in mind, and leaders who can set the tone of a room with their voice alone. Far from being a narrow skill, musical intelligence opens pathways into fields as diverse as neuroscience, media production, education, diplomacy, and therapy. Musical intelligence also naturally nurtures empathy and emotional resilience. Students who learn to create, interpret, and feel through music become more comfortable navigating emotional complexity. They learn that joy, grief, excitement, and fear all have rhythms. And by learning to ride these rhythms, they gain emotional strength and flexibility. Isn't that a kind of intelligence the world desperately needs? Leaders, healers, and thinkers who can feel as well as they reason? In a world increasingly driven by quick information, visual overstimulation, and constant noise, musical intelligence offers a way to slow down, to listen deeply, and to connect with what is timeless and human. But this will only happen if education moves beyond treating music as a luxury and embraces it as a foundational mode of learning, thinking, and connecting. It's not about teaching everyone to become musicians. It's about teaching everyone to listen, to express, and to find meaning through sound. To do this, educators must embed musical learning into the everyday classroom. Students should be encouraged to compose, analyze, create rhythms, interpret moods through music, and reflect on the emotional resonance of sound in all subjects. Music should be seen not as entertainment, but as an intellectual and emotional language that enhances all forms of learning. Let students build memory through melody, understand history through protest songs, and feel physics through the vibrations of sound waves. When we engage musical intelligence fully, we don't just create better musicians, we create more empathetic communicators, more creative professionals, and more emotionally connected human beings. In nurturing the musical mind, education doesn't just become more expressive, it becomes more alive.